I've got my Shakespeare sleeves on. I am ready. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, this is the mid-year book freakout tag.
Dishes in the kitchen, dancing in the rain, you're singing in the shower, yeah, I'm stuck in the
Everyone is
drain.
doing this. And I jumped on the bandwagon. I was gonna film a video about Audiobook Appreciation Month, but that then sounded like a lot of work, and yeah, so here we are. Alrighty, the first prompt is the best book you've read so far in 2020.
Well, let me tell you.
I cannot pick just one, so I'm gonna go with 3. Please forgive me, mid-year freakout book gods. I'm trying. My favorite 3 books I've read so far this year are A Song of Ice and Fire's first book, which is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan, and Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Brief synopsis. A Game of Thrones is an epic fantasy taking place in Westeros. There's tons of different narrators. Love the characters with a burning passion. Arya Stark is my spirit human. Love it, 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 love it. The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan follows a group of 4 mothers and daughters, and they are Chinese Americans. It follows their different experiences in both China and the United States, their different dreams and problems, and how a generational divide can split up a family and a culture, and how healing that divide can bring them back together. Last but not least, Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. This follows an investigative journalist. She goes to her hometown where girls are being murdered and their teeth are being pulled out, and she has to face her kind of abusive mother and very strangely poorly functioning family. It's very spooky, scary, werewolf bar mitzvah, 30 Rock, yes, all the way Liz Lemon. It's also really brilliant. I wasn't expecting any of the twists, so I would totally recommend those books. Next, we've got best sequel you've read so far in 2020. I'm not really a sequels girl, but let's see, what sequels have I read? I'm going to have to say my favorite sequel so far this year was Anne of Avonlea by Lucy Maud Montgomery. This is the second book in the Anne of Green Gables series. It was wonderful to be back with Anne, Gilbert, Diana, and the gang, Matthew and Marilla. Well, Matthew. The setting is stunning, the adventures are hilarious, and probably one of my favorite series ever for if you're looking for some fluff, which, as Kat from Paperback Dreams said, you need to survive in this world. We've got new releases you haven't read yet but want to. Mexican Gothic by Silvio Garcia Morena, I think is the author. Not sure, but that one I really, really want to read. What other books have come out this year? I want to read If It Bleeds by Stephen King. I want to read, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm dreading, but my sister got it, so I'm gonna have to read it. All Adults Here by Emma Straub looks good. Tessa Moshfegh has a new novel called Death in Her Hands. That's probably the one I want to check out the most, just behind Mexican Gothic. Your biggest disappointment this year in reading? Mine would have to be Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This is a very hyped book. It is a romance between a fictional first son of the United States and a fictional prince of England. It's meant to be an enemies to lovers story. They're enemies for literally 10 pages, and then the rest of the book is pretty much just them
Being intimate.
which is fine. I'm totally cool with sex scenes in books. I actually think they can be used for really good character development. I felt like this book, it was just there for the sake of being there. I didn't like really any of the characters. They all annoyed me to some extent. The subplots were just the ending was just so unrealistic that I just could not possibly suspend my disbelief. So I was looking forward to that one too. Man, that was really disappointing. And it was a long audiobook, so like I had to sit through like hours of just but it was supposed to be good. Biggest surprise in your halfway year of books? Goodness gracious. My biggest surprise so far in 2020 has been Lost in Yonkers by Neil Simon. This is a play. I read it in my theater class with my theater gang. We had a good time. We all played each character. It was really fun. Lost in Yonkers follows kind of a dysfunctional family attempting to heal their relationships after their mother has died. It follows 2 brothers, their father, their aunt, their uncle, and their grandmother. The grandmother is really the main focal point of the family. She ties everyone together, but there's a lot of trauma embedded within the family and a lot of unresolved conflict. But it also deals with the individual wants and needs of different people and how those are impacted by societal expectations and outlooks. Favorite new author, debut, or new to you? I'm going to say that my top 3 favorite authors this year that I've been exposed to are Ottessa Moshfegh. I have read My Year of Rest and Relaxation as well as her shorter story McGlue. I'm gonna have to say Gillian Flynn. I loved Sharp Objects. I really want to read Gone Girl. That has been on my list for a while now. And last but not least, I'm gonna have to say Emma Donough. She was the author of Room, as well as I believe she also wrote a book called Frog Music, which I mean to check out very soon. Ottessa Moshfegh has this really unique writing style. Her voice is very clearly prevalent in everything she writes, but it's not formulaic or repetitive. It's really interesting. She looks at the world in a way I've never read before, and I really appreciate that. Gillian Flynn is just a smart writer, you know what I mean? She clearly thinks through everything she's going to write, and I really enjoyed that. She's really good at freaking you out with things that wouldn't ordinarily be freaky. And Emma Donough, I read Room by Emma Donough. It is narrated by a 5-year-old boy, and I was so impressed at how Donough was able to get inside the head of a child and use his voice to communicate a pretty horrible story in a way that lightened it and provided an innocent outlook on life. Okie dokie, newest favorite character. Okay, I'm gonna have to say for this one, Eleanor Oliphant and her pal Raymond from Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. Both really quirky characters. They have the most wonderful male-female platonic relationship. We do not get enough of those in books. And I'm also going to have to say Hercule Poirot. He is a detective from multiple of Agatha Christie's books, but my favorite he's been in so far would have to be The Murder on the Orient Express. He's very insightful and intuitive and mysterious, and he just sits and thinks. He closes his eyes and figures everything out in a jiffy. Book that made you cry. Okay, the book that made me cry this year would be This Is How It Always Is by Lori Frankel. This follows the story of a transgender young girl and her family and their experiences throughout her growing up and figuring out who she is and her identity and how her community reacts to that and the hardships she faces just to be herself. It was such a good book. Lori Frankel is the mother of a transgender daughter, so she did write from a perspective from which she was at least mildly familiar, and I was so touched by this book. The characters were beautiful. The family dynamic was fantastic. Like, if I could be a part of the family in that book, you best bet I would be. I really enjoyed specifically the look into how imperfect parents are. Parents are also people. They also struggle. They also have no idea what's going on or what to do. And that was really clear in this book, but it was shown in a really empathetic and mindful way. A book that made you happy. I don't read many happy books, do I? I have 3 for this one too. Can you forgive me? Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren follows Josh and Hazel. Hazel is an elementary school teacher. She kind of reminds me of Zooey Deschanel's character on New Girl, but more grounded and more real. And Josh is kind of the complete opposite. He's very silent, very stoic, and very dry in his humor. They have a beautiful whirlwind romance. It ends happily. It's completely unrealistic, and it just fulfilled my romantic heart's dreams. I'm also gonna have to say The Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. I think that book is adorable. It is a story about overcoming grief, so it definitely made me sad at some points, but it's about a guy who has a boat that doubles as a bookshop and travels around France. So really, how can that not make you even a smidgen of a bit happy? The last book that has made me really happy so far would be With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This follows Imani. She is a senior in high school who dreams of being a culinary artist, and she has been a mother since her freshman year of high school. I loved this character. I loved this story. I loved how driven and focused and passionate she was, and it just made me hopeful for the future. And we have arrived at our last question of this here tag, which is, what books do you need to read in the remainder of the year? Well, I will tell you, there are a lot I want to read, but there are none I need to read. I feel like BookTube falls into the trap of quantity over quality a lot, which is totally understandable. But to me, it's really important that I focus on the quality of my books and the things I'm getting from them and the insights I'm reaping and the feelings I'm feeling, you know, and not the word count or the page count. This is why my Goodreads goal for every year from now on will always be 1 book a year, because there's no need to pressure myself to do something, because reading is something I love and I want to make sure that I foster that love. It's not something that becomes a chore or an obligation. That said, here are some books that I really want to read this year. I really want to read the novel Sorry for Your Troubles by Padraig Ó Tuama. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but this guy is an Irish poet, and this novel follows conflict not only in Northern Ireland and the Middle East, but also in all other places of conflict. It follows the stories of multiple individuals whose lives have been deeply impacted by these conflicts. Their loves, their losses, their hopes, their dreams, their failures, their trials, their tribulations, their joys, everything in between. I think it'll be very empowering. This novel is considered contemporary spirituality. I don't read a lot of that, so I think this would be a really cool thing to read, and I believe it is a poetry anthology. Big fan of the poetry anthologies. I also want to read The Familiars by Stacey Hall. I think this is a witch story. The witch hunt is going on in England. Young women are being killed. There are creatures. There are people being accused of being witches, so they have to prove their innocence. It explores the lives of 17th century women. It just sounds awesome. I'm so excited. And Goodreads says that ultimately it raises the question, was witch hunting really just women hunting? My answer,
Absolutely.
but I'm really looking forward to reading this book and seeing what it has to say. We were talking about this in English class, and often in literature, specifically older literature, women who were considered powerful or strong or dangerous or opinionated were often framed as witches and something to be feared. And I think that's a really interesting way that misogyny impacted literature. And I think it's really cool that women are starting to kind of reclaim that sort of narrative today. I want to read Sing Unburied Sing by Jessamine Ward. This is meant to be an epochal story of African American literature. I believe it follows a family, their hardships, their happiness, and Ward is really known for her distinctive musical voice in novels. Those are the 3 books I'm most interested in reading in the remainder of the year. Will I read them? I don't know. We'll just have to see. I hope so. It's raining. Did I tell you it's raining? I'm so excited. Thank you so much for tuning in today, everyone. I will see you tomorrow, and I hope you are doing well. Bye-bye.
Without you.